So, we started with God's good creation. We quickly rejected the Creator and the design of His creation. Then God intervenes, breaking into creation by befriending a man named Abraham. The Bible tells us that God spoke to Abraham as a friend speaks to a friend. Promises are given to Abraham. There are 6 parts to this promise. They generally revolve around 2 big ideas. 1, Abraham becoming a great nation, and 2, Abraham bringing a blessing to the whole world. It's been around 700 years since God spoke to Abraham, and this nation is still trying to establish itself. It's been through a lot, so how can I judge? Though most of the trials are of their own doing, will this promise come to be? Well, if you believe that God's promises are unbreakable certainties, then yes, somehow, some way, this promise will come about. We've just come through one of the most discouraging times in Israel's history, though another, possibly an uglier time, will come in a couple hundred years. God again intervenes and changes the trajectory of this nation. Have you ever had a piece of furniture that was misused for so long that you nearly forgot what its original design was? Let me explain. I have this wooden step stool. When I lived in Illinois, there was a moment where I was working on a project and needed a chair to sit in. This step stool was the closest thing to me, so I used it as a seat. I then put it by a desk in our basement where I used it to sit every day. Sometime later, I was working on another project, and I couldn't reach something. I have several folding step stools, but could not locate them right away. Ironically, as I looked around the house for a step stool to work on something in the basement, I totally forgot the chair that was already in the basement was actually a step stool. I forgot its original purpose. I've had this happen with several other items. The socket in my van is intended to be a lighter, but I've used it exclusively for power for so long that I forgot that its original design was as a lighter. I've used brooms to prop things in the garage and then got frustrated when I couldn't find my broom to sweep the garage. In today's story, we have a culture that has started to approach God in a way that shows that they have forgotten what God's core purposes are. They think that God is merely a force to be appeased in order to coax Him into giving them what they want. But God isn't like that. He has always wanted a relationship with His children. He doesn't just want to be pacified so that He will shut up and put up. Do you treat God like that? Do you only speak to Him when you need something to go your way? Perhaps you neglect God by failing to pray in any meaningful way for weeks and weeks. In addition, you refuse to listen to Him through the reading of the Bible. Now you have something quickly approaching and you need His help. You race through your memory banks in an attempt to think of a set of words, disciplines, or behaviors that might get God's attention and force Him to show favor and give you what you want. We've all done this kind of thing. But do you realize that this is similar to treating God like a good luck charm? A rabbit's foot, a lucky number, or a 4-leaf clover? In any other relationship, we would see this as taking advantage of someone, as insulting, as dehumanizing. How do you really expect God to respond to this kind of treatment? When God shows favor and brings us our desires, can you feel the weight of the undeserved mercy and grace that just came our direction? In today's story, we see God give a lot of grace. Yet, there is a limit to this grace, for God will not allow endless attempts of manipulation to go on without consequence. As you discuss these things, be brave enough to confess the ways we have mistreated our relationship with God. Help one another see these things in our daily lives. Perhaps we expect God to perform for us like a slave and then get angry with Him when He fails to give us our fickle desires. I want you to help one another think of ways to remind each other to stop taking advantage of God's kindness. One of the best verses on these thoughts can be found in Romans 2, verses 3 and 4. Paul writes, "Do you think, any one of you who judges those who do such things yet do the same, that you will escape God's judgment? Or do you despise the riches of his kindness, restraint, and patience, not recognizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance?"